Welcome to the sound of the start of your weekend, the Not the Top 20 podcast betting show, sponsored by AK Bets. I'm Ali Maxwell. With me today, St. Nicholas of Goff, coming down the chimney with a sack full of picks ahead of a full slate of EFL action. Some naps to unwrap, some NBs to serve with cheese, add in goal scorers and a long shot, and maybe we'll win the festive lot. Or perhaps not. For the stocking, an unders quad, and that's the pod. It's for over 18s only, and betting comes with significant risks, so understand them. Head to Gamble Aware to remind yourself of the risks and make sure you're betting responsibly. Hello, Goffy.
Hello, mate. How are you? It's great to have a professional in charge of the pod again.
I'm tempted to ask you to recap your selections now, mate, just because the last couple of pods, someone's been forgetting to do that.
No, I've had a really good time with George while you were away, being busy. We had a couple of good weeks. We've had a few winners. We've done all right. George had a crazy week where he hit everything, including the goal scorer. Touch wood, I've not had a losing nap yet, so that's good. So it's all been going quite well.
I've genuinely loved listening to the betting show as a listener for the first time in years, so thank you for that. I guess the last thing to say is that according to last week's pod, I'd get on quite well with your mum.
Yes, we had a little chat about my mum and her quirky ways. You can't be a quirky man like me unless you've got quirky parents, probably. So yeah, what was that? The Christmas lunch chat.
Yeah, George saying parallels with how I view the pod, saying that I do all the work and then complain about doing all the work, which, you know, he's just done all the work while I've been on pat leave for the last 3 weeks, and he immediately has needed a week off, which, you know, kind of makes you think. Goffy, last week you guys did well with your naps. You can call us Sheffield FC because both naps landed. Sheffield United win 2-0 and Sheffield Wednesday at Oxford. George also got his next best up. That was Birmingham win 0 at 21-20 against Bristol Rovers. Wednesday did score from a corner, their first of the season, as he predicted, but it wasn't his long shot to Sean Bernard. Neither of you had any luck with the Blades goal scorers. Goffy, that Wednesday nap landing. Your Crawley and BTTS long shot was a bit of fun. You even said on the show, this could finish like 4-2 or something to Peterborough, something like that. It was 4-3 in the end after Crawley had come roaring back to 3-3. Notts County next best was a loser, and the unders quad was finished by 8:30 p.m. on Friday with those derby goals that kind of came out of nowhere. And just a note on George's win to nil winter, I've gone back and looked at the records. He's made 14 win to nil picks. He's had 8 winners and 6 losers, around 15 points profit from his win to nil picks, but 6 win to nil naps, of which he's had 5 winners and only 1 that didn't cop. So the win to nil winter, which started quite early on as a gag when he wasn't even getting them up, has genuinely become something quite memorable this year. So all good fun. This week, full slate, Goffy. Last games before Christmas. What is your nap?
My nap is Crewe Alexandra to beat Colchester United at 13-10 on Friday night. So I hope this isn't like last week where we had a bet dead on a Friday night. But I'm going for a Friday night again. Crewe feel like a slightly strange case in League Two. They made the playoff final last year despite being crabbed by most people, especially us sort of data geeks. They were never really one of the best 7 teams. Them and Crawley both stumbled into the playoffs a little bit, if you believe the numbers. Made the final. Crawley beat them, and you wondered whether Crewe could do it again this year because they only ever looked like the 10th or 11th best team in the league at most stages last year. Well, they come back. There's no real playoff final hangover, as some teams can have. Started the season very well, but yet again, their early season numbers weren't the best. They're sitting in 3rd in the league. We've now got a 65-game sample from the beginning of last season on Crewe, and they've been in the top 7 all of last year. They're in the top 3 right now, and there's still been people who are unsure of them. So at what point do we say maybe they're just a good team and there's something that they're doing that the underlying numbers and data isn't picking up? I don't know if that's the case or not, but there's a twist, so we don't need to worry about that. And that's that suddenly their data now is good. In the last 6 games, they actually look like a promotion-chasing team for the first time on the numbers. So we don't even have to wrestle with our subconscious now about why are Crewe still winning when everything we believe suggests they're about to regress, which never actually happened. Everything that we're seeing from them now suggests that they're not necessarily a team that has to regress, and they are in a promotion battle on their own right, on the way they're playing and on their numbers as well. Their performance away to Grimsby last week was pretty dominant. That's a tricky away game. They were slight underdogs for the game, battered them really, better team. They were the better side in the 2 draws that they played in before that, home to Bradford and away to Carlisle. more than held their own against Doncaster, who are a top three, borderline top three side by the looks of it, and comfortably beat Notts County just before that, who are a team I put up last week as a side who are about to show some improved performance, and they really let me down at Salford last week, but I stand by the overriding opinion. On top of that, we've got a little bounce in our steps at Crewe at the moment, with Lee Bell, the manager, rejecting an approach from a League One club, which I think was Burton. So he had the chance to move up a league, and he's chosen to stay where he is. And the playing staff surely will feel, take some confidence from that, feel like they want to repay that loyalty with some wins over Christmas and promotion to get him to the league that he's just turned down going to. So I do think there's an off-the-field sort of vibes thing that helps with Crewe as well as the numbers being what they are now. On the Colchester side, this isn't really an anti-Colchester view. It's absolutely a pro Crewe one. Crawley Colchester even are only 18th in the league right now, but the Cowleys have done what they say on the tin, what they're brought in to do. They've made them tough to beat. They've only lost 5 of their 19 league games, but they've drawn a lot, and that's providing a basis for the Cowleys to build on at Colchester in the future. They're not a good team right now, but you can see that they're getting closer to becoming one with the manager who knows what he's doing at that level. Don't be surprised if Colchester are in that top 7 battle next season, but I don't think it's coming this year. What this year was all about was changing the culture at Colchester and not being a relegation candidate anymore. They've done that. Cowley's done that job, but they're not ready to kick on just yet. And their price on Friday night at 9-4, away to a genuine promotion challenger, is too short. Next season, they may well go off this price a lot and win games like this next year. I'm not seeing it from right now. So for me, Friday night, Crewe is the nap.
Yeah, so for my nap, I'm in the Championship. Last week, you and George talked kind of theory, if you like, around the winter nil prices that he's been hoovering up this season. I've got a question for you, basically, to try and milk you for some advice and help me kind of going forward with my picks and with my EFL betting. This week, all but one of the teams on my long list were away sides in the EFL, and all of them were in the 9-5 to 3-1 category, right? And the question that I had for you is, when should I pick these teams in this situation, an away team at, let's say, 9-4? When do you pick them to win straight up, and when do you go for the draw no bet? It feels like the safe option. It's one that I take quite often. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on how you approach this question in your own punting.
Yeah, so a couple of layers to this. The first layer is purely mathematical, and you can take the win price from the 1x2 and exclude the draw. So work out the percentage of the draw that's in the market and remove that, and then reassign it to the two sides, because you're taking what was a 3-way market and turning it into a 2-way market with a draw no bet, and take out that draw price and see whether the percentage is better when you then bet on the draw no bet price available than it was on the 1x2. So what we don't want to do is be having a safer bet just for the sake of having a safer bet. And I appreciate when you come on a pod, you want to give people winners. So taking the safer option can look like an attractive thing to do, because there's more chance of you not losing, and you don't want any criticism from other people. But long term, it's not the right thing to do. From my perspective, I'm coming on here 6 times, and that'll be me done. So it would be simpler for me. It would be tempting for me to take the shorter price every time, try and build up a better strike rate, and leave at the end more chance of having shown a profit. Long term, it's not the right thing to do, and I'm going to stick with the long term, the long term approach. And if I'm not lucky, then so be it. There's a second layer to this, though, that someone like Mike Holden, who's a friend of your pod, would be the right side of looking at sort of some factors outside of the pure maths, and where a team's psychology or mentality might be that they'd be really happy with a draw, or they are going to gamble everything, risk a draw to go for the win in certain situations. And if they're happy to risk that draw, you probably want to be on a big price for them to win, because you want the bigger price to compensate for the fact that in that 1-1 game with 10 minutes to go, if they're going all in, they could easily lose. And so your shorter price isn't as appealing in that spot, because you know that there's a slightly better chance, in theory, of them losing than there would have been. So there's a bit of maths to it. There's a bit of feel to it. And then there's also a little bit of your own psychology, and managing your own bankroll. If you're in a situation where you need to be a little bit more reserved, a little bit safer with your own bankroll, then you're looking to take the draw no bet situation there. If you're playing with a smaller amount of your, if you're having a £10 bet and you've got a £2,000 betting bank, you may as well play the bigger price, because the percentage of your money that you've got tied up in that selection is that much smaller. So a few factors you should consider, but it always starts with the maths for me.
Okay, yeah, quite a lot to think about and chew on. I'm going to have to start applying that stuff next week, because I've already locked in my prices, and I wanted to hear kind of live, if you like, what the advice was. I have for both my nap and next best gone full bush, as I would call it, just straight up win on the 1x2. My nap is Blackburn to beat Millwall in the Championship at 9-4 with AK bets. I spent the first 2 months of the season screaming Millwall are legitimately good at attacking. These good numbers are not just set pieces. For once, they are a genuinely good attacking team. And now I want to scream, not anymore. That was, for whatever reason, just a 2-month flash in the Den pan. It's just 8 goals in their last 13 league games. And they've played 20 league games, so it's quite a nice time to, when you're thinking of stuff like this, split the season in half, look at the first 10 games and the second batch of 10. Just looking at stuff like shots, as basic as that, 135 shots in the first 10 games, only 99 in the next 10. Non-penalty XG per FB ref, 16.4 in the first batch of 10, 9.4 in the second batch of 10. They've lost 42.6% of the attack that they generated in the first chunk of games. And it's been a weird few weeks, of course, with Neil Harris essentially resigning and seemingly happy to do so, which was a real head scratcher, and clearly suggests that behind the scenes there's moves being made to change. As I said on the Monday pod, I think they want to basically change the whole identity, both in terms of playing and recruitment of the club, and it makes me nervy, I'll be honest. Then there's how the players will feel about this. Well, under Neil Harris they had great success, a brilliant survival at the back end of last season with tons of wins, and then this good start to the season where they played some good football, and I think that they will probably not be thrilled about his departure. They haven't had a new man in yet to kind of measure up against him, and sometimes quite quickly thoughts of Neil Harris can fade into the background, but I don't think that's the case yet, because is David Livermore in charge, just a pure caretaker, an interim manager? He won't be the permanent manager, there's no doubt of that. This isn't going to be an Omar Reza situation, I'm confident. I mean, Harris himself, I don't know whether we should trust him or not. He has some bias here, but he had a wonderfully David Brentian quote after his last game where, he seems to think the players are feeling like young children of divorce here, where he said it's been difficult for the lads because they're losing their leader, and it's difficult for them to understand why and where they're going next. We've tried to bridge that gap with humility, honesty and love, as I care about the players. They're really good lads. So it's these good lads bereft of their wonderful dad who take to the field at the Den against a Blackburn side who've won 6 in a row. Now, they got the FOTMob corner treatment on Monday. I went pretty big on why John Eustace is doing a brilliant job, and tried to analyse where this winning run has come from. There are some red flags as to why it might not continue forever, right? Ainsley Pear's shot-stopping numbers are incredible in goal. The only goal he's conceded in the last 6 was a penalty that he saved, and the rebound was tapped in. So he's in great form and is, I wouldn't say he's papering over the cracks, but what's ever a slightly softer version of that. They are strong defensively. They've got a brilliant midfield pivot, and they're pretty clinical. They create a lot of chances on the break, and they're pretty clinical. So, I feel pretty comfortable with Blackburn in a certain level of performance. And I think with Millwall, there's a chance that the atmosphere at the ground, the confusion of the last couple of weeks, and the massive tailspin that the team's been on in the last couple of weeks could see them put in a bit of a stinker of a performance. And Blackburn, as they've shown recently, are just so locked in, so focused, so consistent at the moment. I think they can make the most of that. Because of injuries, Millwall's back four at the moment has been McNamara at left back, out of position, Murray Wallace, who's definitely not their starting centre back, playing with Tanganga, and then Ryan Leonard at right back. I just think for all those factors, Blackburn at 9-4, good value, and that's my nap this weekend. Next best, Goffy.
For the next best, I'm going to go into the Championship and take Bristol City at 7-4, draw no bet, away to West Brom. The vibes are pretty bad at both Black Country clubs at the moment. One's been in the press a lot this last week, but they're not much better at the other one. Carlos Corberan's done a piece on Radio WM, the West Midlands Radio, Thursday morning, highlighting the financial restrictions on the club and how they've had to make a 30% salary reduction year on year to the playing budget. The timing of him doing that coincides with some jobs becoming available, and I think he's just giving a nudge to Southampton. But remember me, look what a good job I'm doing here with a small wage budget. So I think the vibes at West Brom are not ideal at the moment. The manager may be looking for other options, although I think there's a high compensation figure in his contract, which may be the decisive factor in putting Southampton off. We'll wait and see. They've only won 2 of their last 15 league games now, West Brom, and they still sit 8th in the league because they got off to such a flying start. But if you take their last 6 games rolling numbers and adjust them for the fixtures they've played, I have them the 15th best team in the league at the moment. So something's gone pretty badly wrong there for a team that were expecting to be top 6 and started the season like they would be top 6. Maybe there's some off the field discontent. Maybe the manager's not fully on board with where things are going. On the other side of that, Bristol City are a pretty inconsistent side themselves. But often the best time to be with an inconsistent team is when they're underdogs. You don't really want to trust inconsistency when they're odds on, after all. You want to be on them and take a chance with them when they are at a big price and you get fully compensated if it's a going day for them. On the metrics I mentioned above, I've got them the 11th best team, so they're playing a touch better than West Brom anyway over the last 6 games. Last week they played QPR at home. They did everything but find a winning goal, created an awful lot of chances, just didn't win. They've had some good away performances this season. They were 2 minutes away from winning at Sunderland, which is a harder game than this is at the moment. They won at Norwich and Preston last month as well, but they threw in a shocker at Pompey. We talked about Pompey and how they're struggling. Well, they put 3 on Bristol City only 3 or 4 weeks ago to sort of underline that inconsistency. So here's a team I think that are capable of playing at borderline top 6 standard on their day, but they don't have their day every week, and that's why they're not currently a top 6 contender. But at 7-4 draw no bet against a team who have 2 wins in 15, have off-field issues, and are clearly on their day capable, they're an underdog that at this price I feel like it's worth taking a chance on.
Yeah, my next best, also in the Championship, also an away side, this time at 9-5, is Swansea at Hull City on Saturday. I've watched Hull's 2 first games under Ruben Selles. We did a big bit on what we thought was going to be a new manager bounce on the pod last Monday, and to my eyes it hasn't happened at all. I've been pretty shocked at how poor they've been. Against Coventry last Saturday, I couldn't believe it. I mean, Coventry, a good side with some good players, but every time they got the ball, they were able to build a dangerous attack easily. Like, if their own execution had been sharper, they could have been 3 or 4 at half time. Instead, they were 1-0 down, still turned it around to win 2-1. It contributes to me feeling that this group of players are an unserious group of players. They had an undeserved lead 1-0 away at Coventry, and it wasn't that they couldn't see it out. There wasn't even a question in my eyes that they would see it out. It was so easy for Coventry to come back and win that game. The Watford game before then, I mean, that was 2 pretty unserious teams, 2 teams that hate defending and love attacking, and that was just a basketball match in the end. I was just unimpressed. I don't think this is the way for them to approach, building a foundation of a team that will eventually get out of the relegation zone, which is what they have to do. So I'm a bit worried about it. Obviously, Sellers has had a bit more time on the training pitch this week. Maybe they'll look a bit different, a bit better. But for now, I just see players in poor form, from Giles at left back, from Alzat at the base of midfield, Casey Palmer, players that I rate, players that I like, visibly low on confidence and performing poorly. The attacking players available to them are either not very good or not in good form. The midfield balance is a huge issue, and the defence are just sitting ducks at the moment. So pretty worried about Hull, as you can tell. Swansea, I think, are a much more serious side, and Luke Williams' criticism after they threw away a 2-goal lead to lose 3-2 at Sunderland, I think was really pointed and targeted. I don't think it was heat of the moment, passionate. I think he chose that time to make a point to his team. And I think the point that he's making to his team subliminally is they are a good side, but they are way off the top sides. And that's shaken out in their results this season. They've played 9 games against the top 10. They've won 1, drawn 1 and lost 7. They are in 10th at the very bottom of that group. Against teams 11th and below, they've played 12, won 6, drawn 5 and lost 1, getting 1.92 points per game. So where they are in the table perfectly reflects essentially their results this season. And 20 of their 21 games have been decided by either one single goal or drawn. Just a 3-0 win at Preston didn't. So they're a good side. They're just not quite at the next level yet. But I'm pretty encouraged by what I've seen. And I certainly think in terms of a game plan and clarity of how they play, I think they can frustrate Hull because they'll keep the ball away from them. I think the crowd might get pretty restless. And the gaps that Hull are leaving at the back, I think that they can make the most of that. So Swansea are my next best. I'll do my goal scorer quickly too because it's the same game. It's a Swan, born and bred, Liam Cullen at 4-1 to score any time. Cullen is on fire at the moment. Something happened on international duty in November. He scored 2 and set up 2 for Wales against Iceland in a 4-1 win. And having been in quite poor form before then, he's absolutely flying since with 4 goals in 6 games. Got an assist in there as well. Seems to be playing actually in a different role, a slightly more withdrawn role. Not the number 9 now, but playing kind of just off the number 9. And we've seen trends in Championship in the last couple of years that if you've got a proper goal scorer, a really good finisher in that role, can be really potent. I think we saw that with Chuba Akpom and Sammy Smodics, the last 2 Golden Boot winners. There's something in the current Championship where your number 9s are there to disrupt and to run the channels and to offer physicality. And it feels like almost it's your wide forwards and your withdrawn second strikers who are there to kind of finish the chances. So Cullen in great form against a poor Hull defence. I'm expecting at least 2 or 3 decent looks at goal here, and his finishing is excellent. So Cullen at 4-1 is a bit of me for a goal scorer. And then the AK Bet sign-up offer is NTT100. That's the promo code. You can click the link in the description of the podcast. It'll apply the code and take you to the AK Bet's website. The offer is as such. If your first bet is an accumulator on football with a minimum of 4 selections, AK Bets will boost the profit gained on that initial bet by 25% in the form of a free bet up to a value of £100. Further T's and C's are accessible on the website. Just click the link in the description to take advantage of the sign-up offer.
2 goal scorers at half a point each here. I'm staying with a theme that I've been following since the beginning, along the lines that you've done with the centre-backs, trying to hit on a centre-back at some point during the pods that I do with you. Hasn't thrown up a winner yet, but you do have to be patient at these prices. And the stat that I'm going around this week is around Morecambe. On the metric that I've mentioned before of XG allowed per set piece against that team over the last 8 games, they allow 33% more good opportunities against them than the next worst in the league. So you are at least 33% more likely to create a good chance from a set piece against Morecambe than any other team in the league. And that 33% is just, it's just compared to the second and third worst. Compared to the statistically good defending set pieces teams like Wimbledon, like Crewe, you're hundreds of percent more likely to create a chance against Morecambe. So here's a game, Morecambe against Bromley this week, where we want to get against Morecambe and be with Bromley's set-piece boys. I've taken a watch back on Y-Scout of all of the corners Bromley have taken from the last 8 or 10 games, and I tried to make a choice between the 2 centre-backs, Kamal Grant and Omar Shawamni, which one that I want to be on. But it wasn't conclusive from both the video and then looking at the data, which was the better option. So rather than guess, I'm going to go with both. I've watched back the set pieces, and what they seem to do, both of those centre-backs start on the edge of the box, and Grant attacks more the near post, and Sawumni the centre of a goal stroke far post. But there's obviously a mixture of where they're aiming, so it's not like every corner's aimed towards the near post, ever so slightly more towards Grant. But then if you look at the seasonal data, Sawumni has a slightly higher seasonal XG. So at prices of 9-1 and 10-1, why don't we split our stakes and have half each rather than guess and risk just being on the wrong one?
Yeah, I like it. And, we are clearly looking at similar numbers and watching similar Y-Scout videos because I had Omar show me, as he is bizarrely pronounced.
I knew that. Sorry, I've heard you calling that, and I got it wrong. So yeah, I apologise.
Yeah, that's all good. No, that's like, it's just like one of those many English proper nouns, isn't it? Where until you know how it's said, how would you possibly know how it's said? Yeah, I had Show Me on the shortlist for my long shot. I've gone for a different centre back goal scorer in a Friday night game between Wycombe, the top goal scorers, and the team with the most points in the top 4 tiers in English football. They're at home to Bolton Wanderers. I'm picking Caleb Taylor, their centre back, to score anytime at 14-1 with AK Bets. Now, I don't love picking Friday night games generally because I know there are people that listen to this on a Saturday morning, but I cannot ignore this. And I say this is something that was flagged up initially by Lee Tenzo Tennant, who is Bolton fan on NTT20 squad, a big member of the NTT20 betting squad on Leveler on Telegram. He's flagged up that Bolton are missing Ricardo Santos, their main centre-back and the most aerially dominant player in their team. They're also missing George Johnston and Owen Toll, who are the second and third best aerial centre-backs in their team. Actually, Chris Farino's probably second best, but he's barely played at all. He's been missing all season, essentially. And they're all out. They're 4 centre-backs. They're 4 best aerially dominant centre-backs. And they're a team that play a back 3. So it's a problem. He predicts a back 3 of Gethin Jones, Will Forrester and Josh Dakers-Cogley. Dakers-Cogley, certainly not a centre-back by trade. And this is already a team that's conceded 9 goals in 18 games from set pieces, one of the highest numbers in the league for that. And they're playing against a team in Wycombe that scored 12 set-piece goals in their 19 games, one of the highest numbers in the league. So Wycombe have Joe Lowe, who is pretty prolific for centre-back standards. He has scored in 7 of 49 league starts, anytime has landed. But Caleb Taylor is a much juicier price than Lowe because he has scored fewer goals. But I notice he's taken one more shot this season than Lowe in 400 minutes fewer, which makes me think at the longer price at 14-1, he's worth a go. Your pick makes me think maybe I should be splitting the stake and just backing both. But I'll stick with Caleb Taylor, 14-1 anytime. And the icing on the cake for those who like this sort of thing, he's a former Bolton loanee as well, up against his former club. So Caleb Taylor for Wycombe against Bolton on Friday night, anytime 14-1, my long shot. What's yours?
My long shot is back to the Championship, and I'm going to take the 0-0 draw between QPR and Preston at 7-1. Just instinctively, this has the feel of a very dour game, but then looking at the numbers, really backed up my initial thought here. QPR have now only conceded 2 goals in their last 6 games. So if Marty Cifuentes had decided that fixing the defence was the right way to keep QPR up, well, he's done that. Preston now 6 unders games in a row. 6 of their last 8 games have finished either 0-0 or 1-1. QPR have had 3 of their last 10 games finish 0-0, and Preston not quite such a high rate, but 3 of their last 13 have also ended 0-0. So in both of those cases, admittedly a small sample, but they would make this price more than fair at 7-1. Both are hitting 0-0s at a much higher rate than that this season. On top of that, I think you've got it's a little bit early for those sort of end of season scenarios, but already both teams 5 points off the relegation zone, and draws now are probably quite useful for both teams. They'll keep themselves out of trouble with plenty of draws because they've got that 5-point cushion over teams that aren't going to win that many games because they're not very good. Usually you find that in this 3 points for a win era that we've been in for 50 odd years, you are more likely to risk trying to lose to try to win a game because it's worth 2 extra points to do so. But in certain cases, the risk outweighs the reward. And even before Christmas, I feel like if this game is level going into the last 20 minutes or so, neither manager will necessarily be too keen to risk trying to win this game at the expense of losing another point to use as a building block to get them that little bit, to claw themselves further away from the relegation zone. So if we get a dour start here in a 0-0 after half an hour, I'll be quite confident in this going on to potentially be a 0-0.
We finish off with what I described as the stocking filler. 4 little picks bunched together for an unders quad, 9-1 this week with AK Bets. Goffy,
well,
what you adding?
I'll stick in that QPR Preston game if I want to back the 0-0. I better stick the unders in, and I will add to it Burnley against Watford. Burnley were on a run of 14 consecutive under 2.5s until their late comeback at Norwich last week. So now they're on a run of no consecutive under 2.5s. But let's back them to restart that here, because they, under Parker, they really are a sort of undersy team. And the 1-0 Burnley looks like the most likely scoreline here on paper. So just a real unders game, I think, Burnley-Watford.
Yeah, I'm adding Burton Exeter in League One, 5 to 6. I think is a good price for this. Burton have gone back to basics since Mark Robinson was sacked. They've picked up 8 points in 8 games, having got 4 in 11 before then, and that's thanks to just getting the goal line down. Talk of new playing style philosophy in the summer with the new ownership group. It led to some open games that they were losing, and in order to start picking up some points to give themselves at least a chance of staying up under new manager Gary Bowyer, they've just boiled the game down to nothing, and it's worked relatively well. They've got those 8 points from the 8 games. Only one of them has gone over 2.5 goals, and that was the game against Stockport. Not a single one has been BTTS. The results 1-0, 0-0, 2-0, 3-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, and then 0-0. I don't expect Bowyer to come in, suddenly start playing, the old 3-2-5 build up and going all guns blazing. And frankly, this is about Exeter as well, an Exeter team that are low margin themselves. They've seen 6 of their 9 away games go unders, 12 of 19 overall. They've only scored more than 1 goal in a game in 2 of their last 13. They've had a few absences since their hot start to the season, and they've really fallen off a cliff a little bit. So I think low scoring game there in Burton Exeter. I'm going to go Morecambe Bromley as well. Obviously we hope that this will be Morecambe 0, Bromley 2, with Omar Shomi and Kamal Grant on the score sheet, and the unders quad getting a winner. Morecambe do have a nutty game in them, which I guess is why this is 20 to 21 rather than shorter. They're not very good defensively, that's absolutely clear. But under 2.5 goals has landed in more than half their home games, 5 of 9 so far, exactly half of their games overall this season. So they're hardly Peterborough United either on this front. And Bromley, far from a relentless attacking team. Yes, they're a set piece threat, as you've mentioned. Michael Cheek is a good finisher, as we know, but broadly they are just, particularly away from home, solid defensively, boil games down to not much and try and win 1-0. It's something they've excelled at. It's how they got out of the National League when they weren't a big budget team there either. So away from home this season, 9 goals conceded, 10 goals scored in 9 games, 6 of 9 have gone unders. So I actually was thinking about the Bromley 1-0 for a long shot of 15 to 2, but that was beaten by big Caleb Taylor at 14 to 1 anytime. So there you go, I'll add it to the unders quad, and that is QPR Preston and Burnley Watford in the Championship, Burton Exeter and Morecambe Bromley to finish it off at 9 to 1 with AK Bets. AK Bets have built the unders quad at 9 to 1 in the special section of the football part of the AK Bets website. You'll see it very, very clearly. Goffy, please can you recap your selections?
Yes, I can recap my selections. They are a nap of Crewe Alexandra, an NB of Bristol City draw no bet 7 to 4, a long shot of QPR 0 Preston 0, 2 split goal scorers Omar Shomi and Kamal Grant, and the unders combo of Burnley Watford and QPR versus Preston.
Yeah. My naps, Blackburn at Millwall, 9 to 4. My next best, Swansea at Hull, 9 to 5. Liam Cullen to score for Swansea anytime at 4 to 1. My goal scorer pick. And Caleb Taylor to score for Wickham at 14 to 1 is my long shot. The under squad at 9s. QPR, Preston, Burnley, Watford, Burton Exeter and Morecambe against Bromley. And that's that for this week's betting show. You can leave a glass of brandy and a mince pie out for St. Nicholas of Goff in the form of sharing this podcast with any pals who might like it. Have a great Christmas, listeners of the betting show. We will be back for an episode at the end of next week. Look out for it dropping Saturday morning the 28th, and we'll be making some betting picks ahead of the games on the 29th of December. Thank you to AK Bets for sponsoring the pod, and Goffy for joining me this week, and thanks to you for listening. Go well.